I feel like my screen's dark.
Yeah, it does look a little dark. Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. I hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling Labor Day today. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1495. And as you can see, it is the first Monday of the month. And welcome to September. And we have Chris Dyer with us this evening. Yay!
With the tiara.
Oh, yes, the sparkle ladies are in the house. Chris, welcome back. It's so good to have you back again.
Thank you. This is the standing opportunity that we have to get together at least once a month. So that's great. I think we probably should do that with several people in our lives, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like,
so before the show, Chris and I were talking about what are we going to talk about tonight? And we thought the topic of self-care would be really good. So we're going to be talking about self-care tonight. And Chris, what is your version of self-care?
it is truly being in integrity with yourself, right? Because we are conditioned by our upbringing, by society, by cultural standards, by occupational roles, gender roles, all the roles, right? All the identities we've been carrying around all of our lives. And I think as we get older in our age, in our lives chronologically, there comes a time and a point where we realize, okay, we've done the things, we've had the things, now what? And it gives us an opportunity to really evaluate kind of what's really important. And if we are espousing kindness and compassion in the world, we have to also be giving it to ourselves. And to me, that's really what self-care is. It's removing judgment from ourselves and allowing ourselves space, white space, and grace to heal, recover, rebound, reconnect with ourselves. And I have actually wrote a chapter for a book that was for an anthology that's not going to get published, but I still wrote the chapter. And it's called The Prosperous Pause, right?
Ooh,
There's prosperity found. We can create prosperity in the white spaces that we give ourselves because we're so, again, going back to conditioning. And it's really funny. I was sitting because I have a reading chair. You were talking about your reading chair. Well, I have my own, and mine was cheaper than yours. But it is my sacred space that I go to read, do some introspection when I'm in the house. Obviously, I'd love to be outside and doing that as well. But, you know, in the early hours of the morning, that's my inner sanctum, right? That's where I go for my quiet time. Husband's not up yet. Dog's been fed, so they're quiet and happy. I get to do my best reading. And I'm not a fast reader because I will contemplate over the same sentence or paragraph until I'm ready to move on. That's just what I give myself. But last week I was feeling kind of sleepy. I got up at my normal time, and I am an early riser. Again, conditioning from being a mom and knowing that was the only quiet time in my day was the day I got up before the rest of the house, right? I'm sure you can relate.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a good habit, right? It's a good habit. You know, you're not looking at your cell phone. You're not looking at social media. It's just you and your time. But I gave myself the opportunity. I was actually groggy and allowed myself to lay down and take a little bit of a cat nap.
Oh,
and
I love cat naps.
And I was still up before everybody else got up, right? So this is how early in the morning it was. But I put an intention. I did a little practice. You know, they say, like if you're stumped on something, you're having trouble, like go take a nap, right? Go sleep on it, or go take a shower, or, you know, take your mind off of it. And then
go do something completely different.
Right. And then the solution will come to you. And so I did a little experiment. And of course, you know, I studied Napoleon Hill and all that. Well, Thomas Edison is documented to, I mean, he had 10,000 experiments, right? And he's probably only known for 2 or 3 that really ever, you know, amounted to anything. But whenever he was stumped on something, he would go lay down for like 15 minutes and then wake up with the solution. So I laid down, made myself comfortable with, and put an intention in my mind. It's like, what do I want to share with the world today? Who am I here to serve? What's the message? And so, and I woke up with the message that our $1 million, $1 billion ideas are actually already within us.
Mm-hmm.
They're buried in our subconscious.
Yep.
And it's so when we can actually put a pause instead of always grinding and going, we actually give our bodies an opportunity to download or call up ideas, opportunities that have been sort of simmering. I don't like the word fester. Simmer sounds much better. But when we can give ourselves downtime to just think and reflect,
Mm-hmm.
those ideas actually come to us. So anyway, that I actually I did a live on my Facebook feed about that. But how many times is our body trying to tell us it needs a break? It's tired. It's exhausted. It's been going through, processing through something we've been carrying around for a long time. And I know you and I've had this conversation. That to me is self-care, is allowing ourselves to listen to the signals our body's telling us, because our subconscious, our unconscious knows us better than we know ourselves, right?
Sometimes it's a little scary when our subconscious knows us better than we know ourselves, because it's sort of like, oh, I didn't know I knew that.
It's actually quite fascinating. It's like we'll never know all there is to know about ourselves. And that's actually part of the fun of self-discovery. To me, that's like my new addiction. It's my new dopamine hit. And doing that work and having a connection with somebody, and they help us remind us something about ourselves. Maybe we forgot. It's like, oh, I remember when. I remember, oh, that interests me. Let me dig into more, right? So that's the beauty of connecting with ourselves and then connecting to other people in our community. And we are a united front. We are a united voice, and there's more about us that we have in common than we're dissimilar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're all just humans, just trying to do the best we can while we're here.
And listening to your body is important. Learning how to tune into your body and what it's feeling at the time is important. And taking note of those little signals that it sends. Like yesterday, I wasn't planning on doing a self-care day. I thought, what? I've got to get caught up on this course that I'm doing. And I thought this is the perfect time. I don't have any outside influences coming in or anything like that. And I'm sitting here and I'm literally falling asleep while I'm writing notes. And I wake up and I'm going, what the hell did I write? And I was like, I think I'm going to go off for a snoozle. Yeah, Zephanie and I do snoozles during the day. We don't do naps. We do snoozles. It's just, and it could be just laying on the bed and just reading. Or it could be just having a nap, but we call them snoozles. And so I took myself off for one of those yesterday and woke up feeling better. And I thought, and the body was feeling a little tired, but I was like, it's self-care day. We're not going to do anything strenuous. We're not unpacking any boxes. We're just going to go and, we went and watched a movie. And then what did we do? What did we do next, Zeph? I think we went for a walk at that point. So, we just took care of ourselves. And it was just, being conscious of what we're putting into the body, as well as what we're doing around the surrounds, and just laying on the couch with our feet watching movies. So it was just a self-care day, just an unplug and get off the computer day.
Yeah. There's a term, and I'm always going to pull out something from my fitness coaching days, right? Because that's part of who I am. And again, things that are really underrated, but when the rest in recovery, right? I think we've had that conversation of the things that the body needs. The rest in recovery is as important as all the rest of them. And that's the one that we slough off. We think it's not important, when in fact it is. That's when new cells regenerate, right? That's when we recover and rebound. And when we continuously push ourselves, we don't give our psyche, we don't give our bodies time to heal, so that we can move forward full steam ahead, right? There's a time and a place to recognize when it's time for the time out. And then we set ourselves up potentially for worse damage when we just keep going and pushing and grinding. And so, and another criticism that I brought out was like, how about more grace and less grind? Giving ourselves grace to take a time out, right? Because it is a very masculine society that we live in. You know, the masculine energy wants us to grind and build and be and do, right? It's go, go, go. That's a very masculine, heavy energy. But what I like to invite is for us to allow the feminine energy to come up. And that's the nurture. That's the grace. That's the finesse, where we don't always have to be grinding. We can give ourselves grace and space as much as we give to someone else, right? It's like, okay, I don't feel like doing it right now because my body's tired. My body's trying to tell me. But
it's like when you reboot a computer, it gets rid of all that gunk that's slowing it down.
Yeah,
when it
defrag is what we used to call it.
We had that problem this afternoon when I was trying to get online.
Yeah.
But if you take that day off to replenish yourself and just take care of yourself, or go on a vacation or a staycation if you haven't got the time for a vacation, just getting out of the norm is enough to reboot the brain, and you come back and you're more productive, you're more creative, you've got that energy that helps keep you flying. One of the things that I learned as a caregiver for my husband when he had cancer was that I had to take care of myself first. Now that goes against everything for my nature, because I have a servant's heart, and so I'm always wanting to give to others. And they're like, no, you have to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of Brad? And I'm like, oh, okay. And that was a struggle for me to take time off for myself and give myself that self-care time. I have learned through a lot of self-discovery and stuff over the years that it is important for me to take care of myself. And so I took myself from being myself to being a caregiver of myself. And that I could handle. But if I had to say, if somebody said to me, says, oh, you should take a day off and do some self-care, I'm like, yeah, no. But if I turn around and looked at myself that I was the patient, or I was the person that needed the caregiving, and I was the caregiver for myself, that put it in a different perspective for me. And I was able to start doing the self-care days and taking the time off and things. But it took me a long time after Brett had passed before I picked up on that. And that's how I've been working that, is that I am the caregiver of myself. So I need to care for myself.
Well, and grief is a very natural, normal experience that takes a long time to process.
Oh, it's the days where it whacks you out on the side of the head out of the blue. You don't expect it. And sometimes it's a tsunami that hits you, and at times it's just a little nudge. Mm-hmm. And coming up we're in September now, so we're 2 days away from the 6th anniversary of Gus passing, and then 18 days after that, it'll be 6 years since Brad passed. So this month's going to be an up and down, because there's a lot of birthdays in here, but there's also some passings in here, because my grandmother passed in September as well. And so there's a lot of emotion. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster this month. And so I'm just sort of like stepping back and not putting pressure on myself. I'm just going to be easy on myself and just take it easy. And, if I want a self-care day, I'm taking a self-care day.
Well, let's talk about that emotional regulation, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have a daily practice?
I meditate in the morning, so I have my meditations that I do. I did an extra one today after my snoozle. It was awesome.
Okay. Do you like to do guided meditations, or do you have a particular app that you go to?
I have in the what's the name of the company? Hay House. They have an Empower app, so you can listen to different like it's got what's the name? It's got some different meditations and stuff in there, and I've got some people that I prefer listening to their voice when I'm doing meditation, so I will listen to their stuff. But it's where I have to put on noise canceling headphones, because if I hear another noise, it distracts me. So I learned that one very on when I first did guided meditation, because the person who was taking me through it, Brad was in hospital, and so she told me to come in and see her, and we were back in Virginia at the time, and they were in their old office, which was sort of like half buried in the ground. And she said after the thing, she says, well, you're looking more relaxed. How do you feel? I said, I feel great. I said, but the telephone in the room next door needs a voicemail put onto it, because it just rang and rang and rang and didn't switch over to voicemail. So maybe the mailbox is full. Somebody needs to go and do that. The people walking in the hallway should not be discussing patient things as they're walking along the hallway, because these walls are very thin and you can hear everything they're saying. The couple that was walking through the parking lot there were having an argument, and they could really use your services. And I kept listing everything that had happened in that 20 minutes of guided meditation. And she's sitting there with her mouth wide open, like, But I was visual at the same time. I'm visualizing what she's telling me to visualize. And so it was kind of really funny. And then she did guided meditations, group ones as well. So I decided to go along to a group one night in their new place, which was away from the road. You couldn't hear the traffic. She takes a walk in the door, sees me sitting there, had to grab the door frame because her knees buckled underneath with surprise. And then she doesn't say a word. She just walks in the room, takes the clock off the wall, which you could hear going tick, 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 walks through the library, which is what we were off, down the hallway to an office, opens up the door, puts the clock in there. You hear her close the door, comes back, closes the library door, closes the door into this little room. So there was no noise, no distractions. So that's what I have to do. I have to put noise cancelling headphones on, and then I can just hear with the meditation coming in, and I'm getting in both ears, because some meditations you're better hearing it in both ears equally than having it set off to the side.
Well, and some of the programs actually have intentionally embedded within the audio portion different frequencies that are meant to be heard and picked up.
Yeah, the hemisync ones do that.
Mm-hmm.
The hemisync ones, they have some good ones that I like using as well, like the cat napper. If I'm on a plane and I'm an hour out from landing, I'll just put the noise cancelling headphones on, put that on, because I know in the last 30 minutes there's going to be announcements after announcements after announcements. So I put the noise cancelling headphones on an hour before we're due to land and do that 30-minute cat napper and wake up feeling refreshed and great and ready to go.
So what are some other types of meditation that you like to do that aren't technically meditation? We've had a conversation about this.
I know we haven't. Now I'm trying to think. My brain's gone blank. I did one today that wasn't a guided meditation, but it just had a chant that you just repeat over and over and over for the 12 minutes that it goes. And you started off with talking it out. But it's kind of guided because the person's saying it with you. And it's to music too, which helps with the beat, because there's it's 2 minutes of talking it out, 2 minutes of whispering it, 4 minutes of silence where you just go over it in your head, and then 2 minutes of whispering, and then 2 minutes of talking it out at the end. And but you're doing a finger thing at the same time as you're saying the chant. And that was the one I did this afternoon. That was awesome. It was this one has actually been proven to help with Alzheimer's. And I was like, awesome. Hit it off with the pass.
You want to know what else helps ward off dementia and Alzheimer's?
What's that?
Moving your body.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah, during the day it's get out. It's if it's quiet when I'm working, I'll get up, put some music on, and dance. If it's raining, I run outside and dance in the rain.
Moving your body can actually, and we call this active recovery, because people think recovery has to be done being completely still, feet up on the table, vegging out, either sleeping or watching TV. It's like, no, we can also regulate our nervous system actively moving, doing something around the house. We talked about cooking, or we talked about creativity. We're talking about, going for light walks. And you can have your music on, you can have your noise canceling headphones while you walk, and actually walk to the tempo. And it doesn't have to be anything strenuous, but it's still active recovery, right? You're not putting your body through anything strenuous. You're not hiking up your cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So we can be active and still in a recovery mode. And it doesn't have to be like flatline. Because flatline is
laying on your back with your feet up the wall.
That's a good one.
I like that one. But I found with Zephyr, when I'm walking her, is I can't have headphones on or AirPods in or anything like that, because she will start walking erratically and diving off all over the place. But if I am present with her and not listening to anything else, just listening to the sounds of nature, because we've got a park down here with birds and butterflies and so it's a huge dragonfly today. It was like, and hummingbirds and all of that sort of stuff, and being present and listening to that and seeing all of these creatures around. She actually walks here nicely at heel. But if I try and do that and I've got headphones on, she's like, you're not paying attention to me. I'm just going to go wherever. So I have to be present with her. And it's wonderful because I'm getting that stress relief because I'm busy watching nature. There's the trees that might have a gentle breeze going. You've got butterflies that are flying around. There's these little lizards that go scurrying across the path. There's little bunny rabbits that are around. And watch the quail family. And the quail family's got mum and dad and like about 10 chicks. And they're the funniest birds to watch.
We have a lot in our neighborhood too. They are fun to watch.
They are funny to watch. And I'm just happy to stand there and just watch them. And Zeffie will stand there and watch them with me. But you got different birds flying around. There's this one hummingbird that I see, and every time I go, "Are you the one with the red chest?" And it will fly up and it will turn to the sun, put itself in the sun, so you can see the red sparkle on its chest. And that's the one that I always say good morning to. If I see it, it's good morning, Brad. How are you? And I talk to Brad with it because he always liked hummingbirds, so the hummingbird connection here. If I see butterflies, I'm talking to my grandfather because he introduced me. He bought me this enamel painted butterfly with blue zircons as the body, which is my birthstone. And I've always loved that pin. And he was a great storyteller. He was he had a phenomenal imagination. And, I miss him. So when I see butterflies, I automatically think of him and have a conversation with him as I'm walking along. So, so when I'm walking, it's got to be present in the moment, watching what's going on in nature and watching the birds fly or the little ones learning to fly and things like that. And then you get the golf disc players coming through as well. And I actually asked one of them the other day, I said, now when the sprinklers come on, I said, I got a question for you. When do the sprinklers come on? Is that considered a water hazard? And he's like, no, we just play through them or play around them. So
I didn't know what disc golf was until we lived in Oregon. I mean, that's been about 8 years. So yeah.
So we see them a lot because the guys are constantly out there playing it first thing in the morning when it's cooler temperatures and stuff. So when we're out walking, they're playing. And Zeffie will stand there and go, as the Frisbees go past.
Yeah. How are you doing on your course? When do you finish that up?
Which one? I've got 3 that I'm doing right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I knew you were working on your genealogy course. That was
no, that one's done. That one's done.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, that one's done. I've got a writing course, which is going to be about 6 months between. It's going to be about 6 months before the next book's published because it's a longer book, and we're doing more in the publishing process and stuff with that. I'm actually up to the part of choosing my topic for the next one, so that's the hold up on that one. Then I have another one that's a business course. I haven't started that one yet. And what was the other one? Suddenly thought of it the other day. Oh, I've got all my my travel certifications that I have to recertify for, so I'm working my way through those as well. But because some cruise lines, you have to recertify every year to maintain your status with them and things like that. So working through those vendors that have those certifications out and making sure I qualify. So there's a few going on.
Always have continuing education, right?
Always. And even with my genealogy to be a part of the Association of Professional Genealogists, you have to provide them once a year in January of every year, all the courses that you did the previous year, and it has to be over 12 hours of continuing credits. So I've got my spreadsheet going, and every time I finish a genealogy course, I slap it on there and how many hours it took me and things like that. Excuse me.
Yeah. When the time's right, I'd like to have another conversation. I know you and I talked about like the whereabouts of some of my family members, including my father, which that's still a big mystery. But there's parts of my history that I will never know because I don't know my time of birth. And the year I was born, I actually contacted Vital Statistics in Jacksonville, Florida. And there was a 3-year period around the time I was born that hospitals were not mandated to write in the time of birth whenever a child was born. And so that was one of the years. So my mother doesn't remember, it's not documented, and Vital Statistics doesn't have it, which means I'll never know my time of birth.
What does your mother remember about your birthday?
She doesn't.
Oh. Because I asked my mum one time, I says, when I was born, she says, some early hour of the morning because she kept me up all night. And my father was left pacing the waiting room at the time, because that was the time when fathers were not allowed in the delivery room. Was left pacing in the father's waiting room for an hour longer after I'd been born before somebody remembered, oh yeah, we better go tell the husband, go tell him he's a dad.
Well, So that's even more. It's almost, I just imagine it to be, well, that must be what an adopted person feels like to not know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so what do? You just, you live your life like it didn't matter in the first place, honestly. Right. I mean, if you didn't know your parents, who would you be?
Yes.
And so you get to not entangle yourself with thinking in the past. You only think in the present and the future. So that's how I learned to process it. That's a good word.
There's different ways of processing different things, and people have it all the time.
Yeah.
So, but part of the process is taking care of oneself so that one can process. Because sometimes you might not be in the right frame of mind to process, but if you take a little self-care, then that helps with the process and helps you get into that space where you need to process some information that you've received, some information that you're missing, looking around to see, well, what else can I look at? What other records could it possibly be in, and things like that as well. So all that, it always comes down to self-care, because that's where the sparks of inspiration come from.
Well, and I mentioned also, I read a blog article earlier this week, and I posted it in one of the groups that we're active in. And there is an opportunity for us to have better control over our health and well-being, just with the behaviors, right? Just slight behavior modification. And again, taking that time out for the pause, and you just really get to sit and think and wonder, like, why am I doing this? What's it for? Who really cares? And when you really think about it, it's like, is it a pride and ego thing, or do you really need to be doing all the things that you profess you need to be doing? It's like, yeah, no, you really don't. So we can actually simplify to amplify. I know we've heard that, but also, I also believe the word authenticity is an overused word. And for me, I'm looking for being aligned and in my integrity, with me being who I say I am behind the curtain, not just what everybody you think you want people to see. Right.
Yep.
It's the most real way to be. And I think it's good to have conversations like this to normalize that we're all humans. I mean, technically we're superhuman, really. But we haven't, when you give yourself that self-care, you can actually elevate yourself to be superhuman, right? Because then you start thinking in a different dimension, and that's where the creativity and the imagination come into play. But I tread very carefully, because unless you really have experienced that and understand, it's hard to describe to someone who hasn't experienced that, right? So it's me. I have one foot in the physical dimension and another foot in like the spiritual consciousness dimension, right? Because there's so many different layers, and you have to be discerning who you can have those conversations with and not sound like a total fruitcake.
Or as Brad would put it, woo-woo. I remember after he passed, I was talking with Casey, and I said, well, because Brad was always, oh, that sounds woo-woo, and he could never figure out Reiki. He had Reiki on him one time, and he had one practitioner on him, but he felt 6 hands, and he could not figure it out, and it bugged him like crazy that he couldn't figure it out, because he's that engineering mind, he has to figure things out. And so I said, Casey and I were talking after Brad had passed, and I said, well, at least he knows what woo-woo really is now. Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, and they use the term woo-woo because they don't understand. It's just a lack of understanding is all it is. And I mean, that's what, and I don't like to use the word ignorance, but when we don't understand something, we immediately throw up a resistance, or I like to call it the umbrella. Umbrella shelters us. It's like an ego. It shelters us from being willing to take in or being exposed with new information. But on the other side of the umbrella is like the umbra, the shadow, right? And we have to sometimes be willing to put the umbrella down so we can receive. And lightly start making sense and understanding concepts that are extra dimensional. Right?
Yeah. Well, we are at the bottom of the hour, so it is time for us to say goodbye, but I'm enjoying this conversation so much. So, Chris, thank you again for coming on and enlightening us today, especially talking about self-care, because I think that's so important that everybody needs to take care of themselves. Because you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And if you're in a caregiving position, it is super, super important. It's the golden rule of caregiving is take care of thyself before you take care of others, or so you can take care of others. So thank you again. What's one parting word of wisdom you have for everybody today?
Self-compassion.
Love it.
Radical self-compassion.
Love it. Absolutely. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. We hope you had a super fantastic, sparkling time. And we look forward to catching up with you guys at 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow evening. Hei konera.